Mr. Vice President, it's great to have you back on Bloomberg. We welcome you, and I wonder your thoughts about that exercise last night. We were just playing clips of 3, 4 people talking over each other for minutes on end, a lot of zingers, a lot of one-liners. One of the moderators even wanted to play a game of Survivor with you. I just wonder, to the extent that Ronald Reagan's legacy was invoked last evening in Simi Valley, did Republicans live up to the standard set by Ronald Reagan in that exercise last night?
Well, I'm standing here at the Reagan Library still, and, you know, it was very special for me to be a part of the debate last night and here, because Ronald Reagan is the reason I became a Republican, and it was his conservative agenda. It was his optimism, and it was his civility that really defined the man and defined his administration. And last night's debate was at times chaotic, but I really welcomed the opportunity to make my case that I believe that while the former president and some others who were on that stage are steering our party away from Ronald Reagan's agenda of American leadership in the world, fiscal responsibility, even the right to life, that I'm the most consistent and tested conservative in this field. The opportunity to make that case here at the Reagan Library to the American people was a great privilege for me.
Mr. Vice President, you spoke a lot about what you're speaking about now, the fact that populism has taken control of the Republican Party. But if you look back to what Trump was saying in 2015 when he announced his campaign to become president, it reeked of populism. He was calling politicians dumb in his first speech. He was talking about draining the swamp. He was talking about the United States not beating anyone ever. He said, when was the last time we beat Japan? Do you feel responsible for giving credibility to populism in this Republican Party that we're seeing today?
You know, when Donald Trump came down that escalator, he told the American people he was going to make America great again. The first person to say make America great again was Ronald Reagan. And in that campaign, whether it was a commitment to conservatives on our courts, a commitment to cut taxes, a commitment to rebuild our military, Donald Trump promised to govern as a conservative, and I believe when he chose me to be his running mate, there was evidence of his seriousness about that. And for 4 years, we did govern as conservatives. We kept our word. On the world stage, we stood with our allies. We stood up to our enemies. We advanced the largest tax cuts in American history, and of course appointed conservatives to our courts at every level, including 3 of the justices that gave us a new beginning for life. But what I want people to understand is that Donald Trump makes no such promise today. Whatever his rhetoric was back in the day, and his rhetoric has remained the same, the policies that he's advancing now, which include a 10% tax on all imports into the United States that the Tax Foundation said would cost 500,000 jobs, is directly opposite of our administration and the Reagan legacy of cutting taxes for individuals and businesses. The way the president is joining a chorus in the party of embracing appeasement and isolationism and from supporting Ukraine in their battle against the unconscionable Russian invasion. That's not consistent with the way that we stood strong with our allies. We stood up to our enemies, turned our armed forces loose to take down ISIS. We actually, armed forces of the United States, took out 100 Wagner Group Russian military personnel in 2018 in Syria. We stood strong on the world stage, embraced our role as leader of the free world. And of course, lastly, just on the right to life, just in recent days, the American people have heard the president literally criticize states that enacted strong pro-life protections from the moment that an unborn child experiences a heartbeat, and he's made no commitment to support protections for the unborn at the national level. That coming from the leader of the most pro-life administration in history. That's what I mean when I talk about the president and some of his imitators walking away from that timeless conservative agenda. But if I'm president of the United States, the American people can be confident. I'll lead as America on the world stage, being the leader of the free world. We'll lead pro-growth policies, and we'll balance our budget and stand for life.
Your former running mate was, of course, not there last night, and some believe that he will win the Republican nomination without answering a single question in a forum like the one that you endured last evening. What should Donald Trump answer to? Would it be the trillions in debt that he added to the nation and left behind? Would it be his legal challenges right now? What is it?
Well, look, I think he ought to be there. He should have been there last night. He should have been there at the first debate. Look, no one is entitled to the nomination of their party. And frankly, Donald Trump continues to campaign as though he were the incumbent president. But think about this. He's campaigning as an incumbent, but he has less than 50% support of Republicans. That means half of Republicans are looking somewhere else. I think he owes it to our party to step forward and answer the questions. And they can be on those issues. But for my part, I think the president ought to explain, while having passed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in history, he now advocates what would be the largest proposal of tariffs, a 10% tariff on all imports, literally since the Herbert Hoover administration. And why the president, after we rebuilt our military, stood strong on the world stage, is now joining a chorus of isolationists in the party saying that support for the Ukrainian military is not sustainable, and joining others who were on that stage last night who would be fully prepared just to let Vladimir Putin overrun Ukraine. And of course, as I said last night, I think if Putin grabs Ukraine, that just gives a green light to Xi Jinping to move against Taiwan. So I think we achieve peace through strength, and I think the president ought to be willing to step up and explain why he's changed his mind about America's obligations, about leader of the free world, and why he's changed his mind on such a fundamental issue as taxation.
Well, you've talked a lot about your commitment to strong defense. We had on Senator Tommy Tuberville on this week, who said this. This was his quote. He said, "The U.S. military is not an equal opportunity employer. You are the father, you are the stepfather of men who have given their lives to this country, to our military." What does this have to say about the state of the Republican Party?
Well, I don't know the context of that remark. I think the armed forces of the United States throughout our history, from the founding of the country, have been an incredible meeting ground for people of every race and every background who've put on the uniform and served our country.
Mr. Vice President, I feel like we should put a finer point on that. We were asking him about his decision to vote against C.Q. Brown, the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He called him woke and said he wants to mix race into the military, and made that comment that Annmarie just referred to. Is that the wrong view for this country?
Well, look, I believe, and I have great respect for General Brown, but I'm very frustrated when I see the political correctness and the woke politics that's taken hold at the Pentagon under the Biden administration. But I do know how it works. I've worked in a White House. I know how Pentagon works. I mean, we have civilian control of the military. I'm confident that this woke politics is emanating out of the Biden administration. But look, Senator Tuberville has every right to vote to confirm or not to confirm. But for my part, I've made it very clear that if I'm president of the United States, we're going to build a military fitted to the widening challenges of the 21st century. We're going to get this woke politics out of the Pentagon on day one. And that includes, we're going to reinstitute the ban on transgender personnel in the United States military. I truly do believe that is not in the interest of having a military that is that reflects unit cohesion, preparedness, is deployable. We'll put that common sense back into effect.